Hey friends, welcome back to my kitchen. It seems like it's been a long time since I have been in the kitchen making an egg white bread recipe for you. I haven't been experimenting much with egg white bread recently, but other people still have. And this variation popped up on my feed on YouTube just a couple of days ago. And I was like, okay, I have to try this. And of course I have to turn on the camera and try it with you guys. All right, this is a Keto Sourdough recipe by Low Carb Spin. I have talked about them many times. They have some really fantastic recipes that I use a lot. The crackers that they made, oh my gosh. Those have become a staple in my kitchen. Absolutely love them. And they have made several egg white bread variations that are fantastic. And I'm so excited that they have developed a sourdough. I have been asked several times if I have a recipe that is a, egg white bread sourdough recipe. And I always have to say, no, it's such a daunting idea to come up with a sourdough bread recipe. And I just never have taken that on. So I'm so glad that the ladies at Low Carb Spin have continued to experiment, and I'm really excited to try what they came up with. There are a lot of ingredients in this bread recipe, but when you're trying to do something as specific as sourdough, it makes sense. There's got to be a lot of ingredients, and there are a lot of sour ingredients that I'm like, this just might be it. So we're gonna go ahead and put this together and do a taste test. But before we do, we need to chat about the sponsor of today's video, and that sponsor is Element. Element is an electrolyte drink mix that both I and my family use all of the time. They have lots of fruity, refreshing flavors like the citrus salt here, and then they also have some chocolate flavors, chocolate and chocolate caramel, both really good. People love them in coffee or in chai tea. That's one of our favorites. And so not only do we get to enjoy a nice refreshing drink, but it's also supplying us our electrolytes. There is a science-backed ratio in each packet of 1,000 milligrams of sodium, 200 milligrams of potassium, and 60 milligrams of magnesium. And that is a fantastic ratio for anybody, whether they're just a low-carb dieter or an athlete on the field that needs to replenish after sweating a whole bunch. I've found that it's exactly what I need to feel my best and to feel the most hydrated. So Element has a deal for all of my viewers. If you want to get a free sample pack, it looks like this. All you have to do is use my link. It's drinkelement.com/indigo, drinklmnt.com/indigo. The sample pack has 8 of their regular flavors in there, so it's a great way to try out different flavors that you haven't tried yet, or to pass on the little bundle to a friend if you want to share the gift of hydration with them. So thanks again to Element for sponsoring our time in the kitchen today. Low Carb Spin has the recipe written out for this under their video, and so I highly recommend grabbing that because it's a lot of ingredients. You really want it written out. I will link to their video in the cards and in the description. So first thing we're doing is blooming the yeast. So I have my warm water, and then I'm gonna get my teaspoon of honey, and theoretically the honey will get eaten up by the yeast, or at least some of it, so it shouldn't be in the finished product, at least not in the same amount as a carbs. So I'm trying to get 7 grams here. Okay. And try to get that to dissolve in the warm water. Then we're gonna add 2 teaspoons of the active dry yeast and get that mixed up. 2. And I already have my oven preheated to 325, which is what you need for the recipe. So I'm gonna set this over on my warm oven. Next, we're gonna mix up the fats, because of course, when you whip egg whites, you can't mix any fats into that before you whip it. So they have you mix up the fats ahead of time and set them aside, and then you whip up the egg whites and then combine after. So we're gonna go ahead and put in 4 ounces of softened cream cheese, and I did have my cream cheese sitting out at room temperature to get soft, so we should be good there. You can always throw it in the microwave for 10 seconds or so until it's soft and stirrable. Next is a couple tablespoons of sour cream, and you can already see we're getting some sour ingredients in here to make our sourdough. Next, we're gonna do 2 teaspoons of Dijon mustard. And I love that they put all of the weights of the different ingredients. So you can do everything, by grams. which is always the most accurate, especially when you're doing an egg white bread. 10 grams. Next ingredient is a teaspoon of citric acid. This is just so clever. I have never thought to put citric acid in the bread to get that sourdough tang, but it makes sense. Then half a teaspoon of baking soda, 1 tablespoon of baking powder, 2 tablespoons of egg yolk powder, and that's 12 grams, 1.5 tablespoons of allulose, 2.5 tablespoons of acacia fiber, and that is 21 grams, 1 teaspoon of apple cider vinegar, another sour ingredient, and then 1.5 tablespoons of sauerkraut juice. I grabbed this at the store this morning. They didn't have any plain sauerkraut at the store I went to. They had like garlic, and then this one's just caraway, so I'm hoping that that won't give too much of a flavor, but if it does, it'll just, you know, be like a rye bread. The other thing about this particular brand of sauerkraut is it doesn't have a lot of juice. I think I'm gonna have to work to get 1.5 tablespoons here. That's about half a tablespoon. Let's see what else we can get. Oh, there we go. Ooh, I hear it fizzing. All right, now we're gonna thoroughly combine all of this. Ooh, it's getting all fluffy. The acids and the bases are mixing together, having all their reactions. I'm not seeing in the recipe when they added in the bloomed yeast, but if I remember correctly from the video, they added it in with the fat. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and do that. There's my poofy yeast, definitely activated. So I'm gonna pour that in. It smells really good too. It smells just like bread. And I'm gonna give that a quick stir, and then we will get to whipping egg whites. All right, setting that aside, 1 cup of water. I just realized I totally messed up. It does say add in the bloomed yeast mixture here. And I totally messed that up. Oh no, okay, we're gonna just keep going with it and hope it's all good. But if this recipe turns out to be a fail, then we'll know who to blame. So we're gonna add in the gelatin. That is 1 tablespoon, half a teaspoon of cream of tartar, and 100 grams of egg white powder. We're gonna stir this real quick with the blender or the mixer whipper attachment, and then head over to the KitchenAid and get this whipped up. Say whip for around 5 minutes or until stiff peaks form. All right, everything is very thick and stiff, so we are gonna add in the fats portion and quickly mix that. If I can finagle this here. We're gonna pulse, we should probably put it back up, pulse it a little bit just to get it mixed. One more. There we go. Gonna make sure that I don't have any white streaks in here because those will turn to memory foam inside the bread, which is no fun. And they did say that the batter will deflate, so don't worry about that. That's what's supposed to happen. And I think that looks pretty good. We will now get this into our pan. All right, that is all ready to go in the oven, and they said that they baked for about 8 minutes and then scored the top, like waiting until the top got a little bit dry. So I'm gonna try that. And then baking 35 to 40 minutes total. It's got a lot of nice bubbles in it. You can see bubbles coming out, so I'm excited. I think the texture is gonna be real nice. Throwing in the oven, 325, gonna set the first timer for 8 minutes. All right, I'm gonna give this a quick slice. I think that's as good as I'm gonna get it. All right, throwing this back into the oven. Look at this. I followed the directions to turn off the oven and let it sit with the oven door vented for 10 minutes. So that just finished, and look at how beautiful this looks. It rose really nicely. It's not as crazy shaped as some egg white breads can be. So I am going to take this out of the pan, and they said to take it out of the parchment paper as quickly as possible to avoid like the condensation. So let's go ahead and do that. Ooh, the sides look real nice. I can smell the sour. And even when, like while it was cooking, I went out of the kitchen for a little while, and when I walked back into the kitchen, I could smell the sourdough. So I am so excited about this. And then when I opened up the oven to get this out, it was like sourdough wafting. It was amazing. That plus the yeast smell, oh goodness. This is like bringing back baking memories from times past. Okay, let's look at the bottom here. Oh, that looks nice. Definitely a beautiful loaf of bread. This has been cooling for a while, so it is time to give it a slice and a taste. Ooh, that looks nice. Loving the texture already. Got some nice big bubbles there. I gotta smell it. Oh yeah, I can smell the sour for sure. I'm excited to taste it. All right, let's do a little bit of a rip here. There we go. All right, taste test. Okay, it is sour. The sourness hits you first. If you've been missing sourdough tang, definitely try this recipe. This is delicious. Having this with a sandwich with, you know, all the fillings and that sourdough flavor through all of it, definitely gonna be good. They really hit it out of the park with that sour flavor. And the texture of the bread is really nice. There is a tiny bit of wetness, but I think that's just because of the fats in it. And I do expect it'll kind of dry out after it, you know, cools, after it sits for a day, but it's not eggy at all. I think the cream cheese gives it actually a really nice flavor and a really nice texture. It's not choky. That's a term that we use for egg white bread sometimes. When it's really dry and it's really hard to swallow. It is not choky at all. I think the cream cheese in there, and I'm sure the other things as well, help, you know, mitigate that. It really does like just melt in your mouth and dissolve like you want bread to do. Definitely a winner of a recipe. Definitely did a fantastic job like putting together all of those ingredients. Like I said, I will put a link to the recipe video down in the description, as well as up in the cards. And in the description of that video, they have their full written out recipe. Definitely give this a try if you've been missing sourdough. Thanks so much for hanging out in the kitchen with me today. I hope you guys are all doing well, and I'll see you again in the next one.